Welcome to the channel. In today's video, we will read a story about a woman who has a twin sister that her parents favored so much that they blew the woman wedding fund on her twin, so she decided to cut them off after rejecting her mom's selfish demand. This is a two-part story, so be sure to like and subscribe for part 2. Let us begin. A 23 years old female have a twin sister, Allison, who I'm not on good terms with. Scratch that, I'm not even on speaking terms with her, and neither with my parents. We used to be at least on talking terms in spite of the way I've been treated in the past. But for the last 2 years, I've kept my distance, and they hadn't bothered to reach out to me either until recently. Allison is 12 minutes older than me, and by default the golden child because she's older. My parents only wanted one kid because that's what they had planned for, and they didn't have the means to raise two. But by the time they found out, it was too late, and Mom didn't want to risk anything. I found out about this around the time I was in high school from my drunk uncle at a Thanksgiving party, and that was pretty much the day I stopped trying to win my parents over. They'd done the most natural thing somebody in those circumstances could do. Gave birth to 2 kids and decided that only one of them would be loved. That happened to be Allison and not me. Right from when we were kids, the sibling rivalry between me and Allison was insane. Everything she could do, I'd try to do better just to impress our parents, but they just seemed to hate me more for outdoing their golden child. I'll be honest, Allison really wasn't interested in being better than me. She just wanted people to validate her, so she'd pretend she cared about the competition we had going on. I'll admit that she was good at manipulation and making people believe that she actually felt hurt when I did things better, which led to a lot of people validating her feelings and putting me down to make her feel better. These people included my parents, a couple of our relatives, and even some people from high school. So to conclude, what I got out of the competition was good grades and lots of co-curriculars, so I could be better than my sister. And what she got out of this was my parents' and other people's attention, validation, and sympathy because I was clearly the bad guy for making her feel less. Looking back, I don't think I would trade that, but I sure would like to rub it in her face more than I had at the time. Then, 2 years ago, we celebrated our 21st birthday. Both of us had graduated by then. She'd graduated from a regular college, but I'd graduated from one of the top business schools in the state. Not only that, I'd also been the valedictorian and had also been on a scholarship, which meant that my parents had saved quite a lot on my education. And call me crazy, but I actually expected my parents to be happy about it. They weren't and only paid attention to Allison and her future because she had barely scraped by. Both of us had moved back home, but while I was working from home at a firm as an intern already, Allison was still looking for jobs and getting rejected left and right. My parents cared more about that and hadn't even bothered to congratulate me or anything. I couldn't say I was surprised, but I sure was disappointed. I tried to hide it because at the time I was still living with my parents and hadn't saved up enough to move out yet, so I decided I'd just keep my mouth shut about my feelings. But after our 21st birthday, I just couldn't anymore. I expected them to do something big for us, but the day before our birthday, I discovered that everyone had left me home alone. And all that they'd left for me was a note that said they were heading to the beach with Allison and her friends and would be back after a couple of days. I still remember being absolutely shattered when I read that note because they'd taken Allison and her friends on a beach trip while all I got was a happy birthday note and a $50 gift card. A lot of things had been unfair about my childhood, but that was where I drew the line. It was just so hugely disappointing and heartless of them that I decided to move out that day and never look back. I had a couple of friends who were willing to let me stay with them until I found a place of my own and could afford it, which wouldn't take long because the firm I was interning at was probably going to hire me after the internship was over. So I just needed a place to live for 2 months at most. I packed my stuff and moved in with a friend of mine without telling my parents or sister and haven't looked back even once. Neither did they miss me enough to ask me to come back. They did call me on my birthday the day after I moved out, but not to wish me. They wanted to tell me that they'd be back soon and said that I should probably get a plumber to get the tap fixed. I told them that I wasn't living at home anymore and that I'd moved out, thinking that at least that information would get a reaction out of them, but with no such luck. My parents seemed all right with it, and Allison didn't care, so that was it. That was the last time I had a proper conversation with my family. Since then, I haven't gone back to see them, and neither have I heard from them. I did hear about Allison sometimes from my friends a couple of times, and that's how I stayed updated on her life, but that's about it. They didn't know anything about my parents, and my parents didn't know anything about me. I've worked hard over the past 2 years, and now I have a place of my own. It's not a mansion, but it's a nice apartment in a good neighborhood. The rent is affordable with my income, which is great because most people my age haven't been able to get here so quickly. I'm happy with how my life has turned out, and I've tried my best to keep my family out of my head. I know that Allison got married a couple of months ago to some businessman almost 10 years older than her and is now living it up in California. I thought all was okay with my family, but 2 days ago, I received a call from my uncle telling me that I had to come to visit my parents quickly because they'd been in a really bad car crash and wanted to see me. I rushed to the hospital as soon as I could because, of course, I'm not that heartless. On reaching, I found out that they'd already been in the hospital for a couple of days and were healing from their injuries. A truck had hit their car, and they'd survived but with serious injuries. They didn't have health insurance because my dad had always believed that if we just took care of ourselves, we wouldn't need the hospital at all, which is by far one of the most idiotic takes I've ever heard. They'd first contacted my sister, but she'd told them that she wasn't going to come back and neither was she going to help them. Apparently, it was tacky of our parents to ask for financial help from their rich son-in-laws so soon after their wedding, and she didn't want to seem like she was a gold digger to her husband. She didn't want to fly back either because she couldn't just abandon her home and her 2 kids who weren't even her own. They were her husband's kids from a previous marriage, but she was too busy playing happy family with her husband's family to come see her own parents in the hospital after a terrible car accident. But it's not like she could have helped them with the bills even if she wanted to, because if her husband wasn't there for her, she wouldn't have been able to afford even the flight tickets back home, seeing as how she's just a stay-at-home mom now to kids who aren't even her own. So much for being the favorite daughter and the golden child. I couldn't believe that they hadn't even had the decency to call me first. But it got even more infuriating when my uncle said that my parents now wanted me to cover their medical expenses. It's obviously a huge amount, and it'll take me a long time to recover from a financial loss like that. I don't want to have to spend so much, especially on people who never cared for me or showed me any love my entire life. I know they have other family to take care of them, and even if I don't pay for them, someone else will. It's just that it'll probably be more humiliating for them to take money from others, and they'll definitely have to return it a lot sooner than they would have had to return the money to me. At least that's what they told me while requesting me to cover the bills and even promised that I'd have the money back in no time. So I don't know. I'm in a tough spot right now. I can either humiliate my parents by refusing to pay their medical bills and look out for myself, or I can pay for them, lose out on my own money, and then keep waiting for them to return that amount. If I'm going to be totally honest, I'm not inclined to pay for them at all. We haven't spoken in the last 2 years, and things have been bad between me and my family for as long as I can remember. They're as good as strangers to me now, so I don't feel very compelled to help them out right now. But then that would mean I'm no better than Allison, which would suck. So, am I the asshole for not wanting to help my parents pay their hospital bills after they were in a really bad car accident? And that's the end of part 1 of this story. What do you guys think about the situation? Let me know in the comment, and I will see you in the next video.